Hi, everyone. Welcome to CX Confessions. My name is Christine Reimer, and I lead customer experience and advocacy at SurveyMonkey. And CX Confessions is our chance to have honest, authentic, practical conversations with customer experience leaders on how they gather customer feedback at scale to drive action, to drive growth and innovation for their organizations. We want these sessions to be interactive, so first, tell us where you are dialing in from. We've noticed over the last few episodes, lots of folks joining us from India, from EMEA, from across the United States. So tell us where you're joining in from. So with that, I would like to welcome one of the best, my dear friend, Teresa Anania, joining us, and she leads customer success at Zendesk. Welcome, Teresa.
Hi, so glad to be here.
Very glad to have you. Now remind me, where are you dialing in from? Where are you sheltering in place, and with whom?
Yeah, so I'm calling in from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and yes, my company is situated in San Francisco, and I have a global responsibility, but somehow we're doing all of this, all of us are, from a remote location, so making the best of it. I happen to have 3 kids at home now, so I have my oldest 22-year-old, starting a job, but doing it remotely. And then I have my 19-year-old daughter and my 16-year-old son. And frankly, it's been interesting balancing the work and the home life and not traveling like I normally did every week.
I know. Teresa and I have chatted repeatedly of, getting the job done and balancing, trying to get dinner on the table for a group of teenagers and young adults. So I'm so glad to have you join us today. All right, let's first start. How did you get into the space of customer success, customer advocacy, customer experience?
Yeah, that was a journey for sure. And I absolutely love it. But really, it started, I think, just through my passion for technology and the whole SaaS model, and really spending time in sales for several years at Autodesk. And then in the product teams, managing all the product roadmaps and longer term outlook for that strategy. And then finally, the marketing group and learning how important one-to-many is and using scale and data to really personalize the experience. So putting that all together really drove me to want to be closer to the customer, but really leverage all of those skills and relationships that I had built in those teams, because we all know doing CS and CX is requiring a cross-functional alignment.
I love that. And very similar journey to yourself. I've spent time in sales and in product marketing and actually business systems. And, we get asked a lot, what are the skills folks need to succeed? And I think you nailed it, that those cross-functional partners in your organization is often how you're gathering that feedback and then how you're taking action. So you have such credibility when you have experienced and been in those various functions.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Love that. All right. So you've had this journey, you spent time at Autodesk, you get this cross-functional experience, and you join Zendesk. So talk to me about your journey of walking through the door at Zendesk with this amazing opportunity, this great company, what your goals were. And then, my goodness, then comes March, right. Or for some folks, maybe a little earlier with the hit of the pandemic and what's changed. So tell me about your journey at Zendesk so far.
Oh, yeah. I would say onboarding at a new company, February 1, was not probably the ideal time to join a brand new company and to be at the epicenter of, this crisis, because our customers have really been in big need. And so jumping in and not having the time necessarily to get up to speed with all of our offerings and our product value proposition, it's been challenging. But on the positive side, my role is to, manage our entire global organization of customer success and the renewals organization, addressing all the segments of our customer base. So everything from our top enterprise down to our scaled, long tail, if you will. So, I'd say that, effective in the March timeframe, I guess, when work from home became a reality, and recognizing that our customers were going to be in great need at this time, I really just had to jump in the fire, and really just learn, on the ground kind of how also the practice was built prior to me, which was a great practice, but how do we shift it and really make sure that we're addressing customers' needs at a time like this? You can imagine with our solution being customer facing for many of our customers, they actually service their customers using our platform. You had everything from one end of the spectrum, many of our customers really having a surge and digitization and chat and all sorts of different channels becoming of vital importance to helping them during this pandemic. But then you also had the other end of the spectrum and much of the retail and some of the hospitality, like having a tough time. So we really just had to, group together as an organization cross-functionally, identify like how best we can partner with our customers to make sure that we were caring for them at this time of need, while also managing some of the real challenges of a distributed workforce myself and having my global organization all of a sudden be working from home.
I love hearing that, Teresa. So one of the things I hear from others, and you've had a unique situation with onboarding during this, is there is a gift with this pandemic of being able to pivot and shift because there is no playbook, and the importance of connecting with others. I've heard from other customer experience leaders that what has changed is the opportunity to advance, investing in the digital experience, the importance of showing up with your customers with empathy, being in service, being helpful, and listening to our customers in the here and now. How are you guiding your team to be in service of their customers in over the last few months?
Yeah, it's been interesting because you can imagine, I'm sure all of us are in the same boat. We all have day jobs, right? And so there was an ongoing motion, a regular rhythm to connecting with customers at key moments of truth and really trying to drive that ROI and that adoption breadth so that in the end, we can not only ensure we've earned their renewal, but then also potential expansion opportunities as well. But then comes COVID. And frankly, there's no real rhythm to being assured that you're there for the customer when they need you in that crisis. Everyone had different expectations, whether it was that their BPO, their call center was now distributed, and they needed to recognize how to handle the customer service experience for their customers in a way that was still seamless. Whether it's adding chat capabilities because their traditional email or phone support was no longer sufficient. The surge on some of those customers required some extra capacity. So we really had to pivot the entire motions of our customer success organization to basically take customer needs and requests in a way that helped us triage right to the team that could help them most, and really just be in a mode of listening, understanding the business challenges, and not only focusing on the here and now, but then what is their recovery plan? Like, how do they expect? And now we're starting to think about how those plans are going to manifest in, frankly, a new way that those companies engage with their customers. So it's really been interesting to see my entire company rally for the customer. It did put customer success in the spotlight for sure, both good and bad, meaning we had to handle all of the escalations, all of the challenges, but I think it elevated the importance at even our C staff table of how critical it is to partner and retain our customers. And now more than ever, I think CS is on the map. I think it legitimizes and starts to identify the value that CS plays, not only in a time of crisis, but also, again, how we partner to get our customers back faster on track and actually coming out of this in a place that is even better off than the way they came in.
I couldn't agree more. And it's so interesting you say that, because I'm hearing that a lot from customer experience and success leaders, that everybody is known it's important to take care of your customers, to listen, to be in a mindset of how can I be in service to you and help you succeed. But that this pandemic has really brought that to light, and really at the C level, the realization of, acquiring customers in this environment can be more challenging. Some folks some organizations may be thriving, but for a lot of folks, it's really highlighted the importance of the experience you're delivering for your customers. Super insightful. All right, so you've talked about, you started to flirt towards this conversation around segmenting. So you mentioned, as you think about your customer base, different folks in different industries are experiencing this world differently right now. Some might be more slammed than others. Some might be really struggling. So you have to think about segmenting by who they are. I imagine also at Zendesk, you probably have some pretty large customers, but then a lot all the way down to small businesses. So tell me, as you think about delivering a great experience for your customers, how does segmentation play into the experience that you deliver?
Yeah, it's absolutely key. It's a way that you can ensure that consistent experience is there, but also the way you scale the organization. So I'd say my learnings over the last few years, even from when I spent time at Autodesk building our segmentation, it shifted from a pretty fixed, almost arbitrary approach based on what they've spent with the company to a more dynamic approach. And I think now with this pandemic and having to react the way we had to, it punctuates more than ever the importance of meeting customers where they are and where they need you to be, and not just limit it to what they've spent to date. So we look at a couple lenses. We keep it simple. We don't want to overcomplicate the matter, and it does have to be repeatable. So we try to look at this every 6 months just to kind of recalibrate and optimize around our capacity and our language, variation, et cetera. But what we're looking at is like, what have they spent, but also what is the addressable spend in that customer? Where is our opportunity for growth? And so by doing that, we're really able to tailor, I would say, the touch points or the playbooks that we're going to drive and deliver for that customer. Of course, higher touch for our larger customers or where there is a lot of addressable spend available, to ensure that we get that direct customer feedback and input about what are the ROI goals they have? What do they need? What are the outcomes that they need with the solutions they bought? And then how does our customer success plan really tailor that journey to ensure we're delivering on those expectations and they're achieving and exceeding that ROI. But then you got to take that playbook and you gotta, create a repeatable play that's more scalable as you move down that pyramid. And so we've taken some of the elements of that and using critical data and insights and certainly aggregating them from all various sources. How might we identify where is the customer in that maturity curve when we don't have the benefit of those high touch, QBRs? And so taking that segment and really treating them with a lighter touch approach, but still one that is ROI focused. And then we have, of course, our scaled model. And that's everything that falls below a certain threshold on that dynamic matrix I shared with you. And that's more trigger based, where we're looking at the data and insights way more heavily to inform that CSM person that might have 1,000 accounts. Where do I go next to ensure my customers are on that healthy track? And so that's kind of the way we've done it. And I think it's a good way to scale.
Yeah, you are bringing back memories for me, Teresa. Many years ago, I worked in healthcare, and I had 2 clients, and they were massive. And so that high touch experience, I knew who everyone was and where the plays were. And then I switched roles running financial services, and I had a team of 100 with 1,000 clients with 2,000 projects a year. And I just remember that moment where I'm like, wait a minute, this high touch, QBR approach, it's not going to work when we are modeling through a much larger customer base. So I love how you've not just thought of that, but kind of really developed that into a playbook that's repeatable.
Yeah.
That's great. All right. So you mentioned a few times the experience for those larger customers, smaller customers, also against industry relative to current spend versus opportunity of spend. So I get the sense, Teresa, that you run a measurements-oriented program. It is one of the things that comes up so often from customer experience leaders who are like, but we have that value. It matters,
Right.
and thinking about how important it is to measure your program, to measure the impact you're having, to measure the value your team's success and experience is delivering for customers. So tell me a bit of how you think about measurement and any practical advice on how you do that.
Yeah, I think it's such a critical question. I mean, unless you're in the benefit of an organization that fully monetizes customer success and it's self-funded, that question may not be posed in that scene. But most of us are either in a hybrid state of monetization and self-funding, and also some don't have any of that monetization happening. But we all know that we're making an impact. How do you get the articulation of that value in front of the C-suite? Because we might know, we might see it every day, but actually having a dollar associated with that on an ultimate business goal, such as a lagging indicator of renewal rate, you can't wait for that. And that lagging indicator is critical, and you got to be showing that you're hitting that ultimate outcome. But how do you show attribution and leading indicators as a result of all those engagement touch points that I mentioned? So one thing we're doing and we're thinking about is each of those phases of the customer life cycle, there should be a goal for success of that phase. So when they're in that onboarding phase and fully implemented, what does that look like in the organization that indicates success? So for us, it's like activated licenses, making sure that over a certain like 80% threshold, they've activated and they're starting to use. So that tells us fast time to value. And so by measuring that our engagement touch points with the customers that we're engaging with actually get that faster time to value, even though that ultimate renewal, rate won't be seen for maybe another 9 months, it's our way to show impact on that implementation, that onboarding time in the life cycle. And then we do the same for adoption. We basically say, here are the customers that are on track and show successful adoption. And you can use data science, Christine, that might indicate like what are the most critical attributes of adoption that most highly correlate to renewal rate. But sometimes, just to be practical, if you don't have the benefit of that big data science team, just put a stake in the ground. Your team on the ground probably knows what successful adoption looks like. So just look for the data and insights that might tell you where folks are on track and off track. And then is your engagement touch points over that phase helping get it closer to the successful goal that would yield an ROI for that customer, of course. So those attribution measures all help us prove the point that when you're engaging, and by the way, it applies digitally or with humans. So you can use the same attribution model for the digital engagement. What are the uplifts that you're getting in those success goals along that life cycle that then you can show the full closed loop and say they also provide an uplift in the renewal rate as well. That's how we've been doing it to really measure impact. One other quick thing I want to mention is that we're also starting to account for expansion. I'm kind of fatigued by just talking about churn and contraction all day and mitigating churn and contraction. I've switched the conversation to what's the great work we've done to retain the base, and then what's their expansion in that account. So NER, or net expansion rate, and RR, some use, that also is a great ultimate outcome for the business. And so starting to hold my team accountable for that expansion motion is another good way to start monetizing the value of customer success.
There's so many insights and advice in there. I was having moments, and I hope for those of you dialed in, I was having those moments of like, oh gosh, I could do that, or I should do that. The importance you talk about along the journey. I love that you mentioned, and I have that same allergic reaction. The difference between playing sort of defense of how do we retain our customers, or how do we prevent churn, to saying how are we delivering value, and how are we delivering the type of experience where our customers want to continue to grow with us because they say we are a partner that is accretive and helpful to their success. So I love how you're thinking about it, and I love how you're thinking about it across the journey. Please, for those of you who are dialed in, ask questions. If we don't get to it live, we will certainly chime in and answer later. All right, you mentioned across the journey, and you started this conversation on the importance of partnering cross-functionally. So you're sitting in a success organization, you need to be partnering with sales, the support organization. My guess is you're partnering with product on what are you hearing from your customers? How are we continuing to improve the product? As well as marketing, both the marketing website and the digital experience, as well as the expectations they're setting. So give me a sense a bit about how you think about partnering cross-functionally, both to listen to your customers, as well as to take action to improve their experience.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we're all organized in such different ways in our companies. Sometimes success sits under CX, sometimes it sits under sales. The dependencies on the product teams, the marketing teams, the sales teams cannot be underestimated. They are huge. So how we've been thinking about it is create that alignment across the org about what that customer profile is and what matters. What data and insights are we all going to say are critical to determining successful customers that have lifetime value potential? So whether it's NPS data, survey data, whether it's usage data, it can't just be all data because all data is not actionable. So organizing that key like MVP, minimum viable product of what are the insights we're all going to rally around and say, we're all signed up for this, I think helps gravitate everyone to a shared goal. And then I think things like voice of customer programs, obviously product escalation programs that help surface the most critical customer feedback that might be like your deal blocker to the renewal, let alone expansion, have to be on a fast track because all insights are hard to be actionable. But some insights that are going to make or break the account really need surfaced up to get that cross-org alignment that how are we all going to rally around and make sure we succeed? The other thing I think that we've done that is really important is this concept of clarifying roles and responsibilities and being super clear. What is sales signed up to do? Of course, land and expand. And then if we're in charge of the adoption and the renewal phases, what are we going to all do to make sure that we work together so it looks very seamless to the customer? Even though we're in separate orgs and we're cross-functional, we each have our swim lane. And the customer understands that there's a single point of contact. And even though that contact may need a whole team of people to ensure the specialization comes to the table, we like to put customer success as that quarterback that really helps ensure that customer doesn't need to know our org structure in order to get the very specialized help they may need.
It's great. You hit on so many, what I love, Teresa, and it comes through so clearly is the thoughtfulness on planning, which I heard things like segmenting your customers, being thoughtful of what success looks like, that asking, making sure you're gathering that feedback from, large to small and being thoughtful on how to play out that segmentation. The analysis is both that feedback, but the other data, but that you can't get overwhelmed and try to operationalize them all. So you put some stakes in the sand and you're better off starting somewhere and adjusting. But then of course, it really comes down to the actions to both, of course, retain our customers, but deliver value to create that expansion opportunity. Really, really helps for those, whether they're brand new into customer experience or success or more mature, where are those opportunities to improve. Is there any, as we come up on time, any closing advice for folks who might be listening today, who might be inspired or maybe a little intimidated, like, oh gosh, I don't have all this figured out? Any advice for folks listening in?
You know what? I would just say in my learnings, like I left a company that was on-prem and just had shifted to SaaS and therefore had 30 years of like DNA and back office, like data challenges that I thought were quite unique because that company wasn't born in the cloud. And now I'm in a company that was born in the cloud. And I can tell you, data challenges persist. It's okay. Don't wait for perfect data. Start somewhere. Identify what really matters and talk to your CS team to get the true, like, on the ground thinking of where success lies with that customer to achieve their ROI. And then you can take that and create playbooks to address when customers are off track, but keep it simple. Don't wait for, the full, like, playbook where everyone knows their part and you document the customer journey end to end. Start with a portion, start with the teams and the groups that you can best control, and then you can expand it out. And I feel like tools and data are a critical part of it. But frankly, again, I'd say go scrappy if you don't have that, because you're going to learn. And instead of planning out the perfect, end state, you're going to probably refine what your requirements are by trying it just even scrappy. So those are my points of advice.
So such wise advice, completely consistent to what I hear of the importance of being agile. Get started, learn, and bump your knees. It's okay. We're all on that journey.
And measure.
Yes, please. So often.
Otherwise, you'll never get more investment. You'll stay in scrappy mode forever.
Peace, amen to that. Of like, but I'm doing all this great work, but not measuring. Couldn't agree more. Well, wise words to end on. For those who dialed in, thank you for joining us. We'll keep the conversation going on LinkedIn. But Teresa, thank you for taking the time to dial in today. You are an expert, and we are so grateful for you to share our insights to the audience.
No, thank you. It's been fun.
Awesome. All right. With that, everyone, have a great rest of your day. Thanks so much for joining.